Okay, I'm going to show you how to be able to convert the X-Loom patterns that I've put out to be able to be done on the small gauge Flexi Looms. And what I want to make a point of is this, let's see if I can get it on camera. This bear here, this was made on the Flexi Loom based off of my X-Loom pattern with minor changes. So minor. And I'm going to explain those adjustments. Okay, so that you can go in and you can take the Flexi Loom, which is affordable, and enjoy the patterns that I made for the X-Loom. Okay. I still love my X-Loom. I do find it still easier to increase and decrease if I'm just not having to worry about doing more if I'm doing just 4 directions, it's easier in my personal opinion. If I'm needing to do more than that, then no, you'll want to do the Flexi Loom. But if you want real ease of increasing and decreasing, it's actually easier with the X-Loom. There is no stitch shuffling, but you will have to do some stitch shuffling and popping out and that kind of thing with the Flexi Loom. Okay. I think it's a nice loom. I think it has a lot of potential, and it does even offer more versatility than the X-Loom. Okay, it is technically more versatile than my design, my original design here that has come out. Okay, so while this was the most flexible loom on the market, the Flexi Loom is now the most flexible. Alright, so I kind of already started something, and you can see that it's in the shape of the X. Alright. What you're going to do is you're going to try to evenly set up, and the lowest that this goes is, I don't have my notes on this particular one. The lowest this goes is 24, and this is the small one, and I think it goes as high as 90, so you are offered 96 pegs with the Flexi Loom. So you can use the package that you get, the single package you get is equivalent to a packet to the small X Loom on a single package of the Flexi Loom, if you're wondering. Okay, but that's what the wedge is maxed out. Alright, there's technically more pegs that you can use on the X Loom on a single than on a single package on here. But when you max out the wedges, you get the same amount pretty much. Alright, so I'm going to show you how to do an increase. I'm going to explain how that works. You can see that I have these evenly placed. Now, if you've watched my 5/8 inch gauge videos, this is based off of more of that style, decreasing and increasing. But what you got to keep in mind is when I wrote these patterns out that are available, it was still based on increasing and decreasing by 2 from each wedge. And so you're going to be increasing and decreasing by 2 at each corner. Okay, you're going to want to keep these stitch markers. You're going to keep them on purpose. Now, here's the benefit. You can set your loom up to look like an X loom. Put your stitch markers in on your wedge points. This will help you be able to make my patterns. Alright, so when you're looking at my patterns and you see wedge increases, 4 wedge increases, 4 wedge decreases, this is where you're doing. You're doing wedge increases and decreases at these 4 points. Alright, keep that in mind. If you're doing anything along those lines, you're doing it like this. Alright, it's going to not look exactly the same. It's going to look a little different, but not by much. Now, here's the benefit. Alright, you set this up, and then you can just open it up. Okay? That's how easy it is. Alright? So you can set it up where it's all even and everything, and then you can just open it up to work with it like it is. Alright? So you can work with it more flat. And yes, you can work with this in your lap and holding it. It does move around, but I don't find it moves around that much. Alright, so we marked our spots. Okay? So I'm going to do an increase row, and then I'll show you a decrease row. So here's how this works. I'm going to knit my way over to the actual stitch marker. That stitch marker is going to tell you where your increase and decrease is at all times. Now I'm going to do a double knit increase. So you're going to go in and you're going to take, see if I can get this to focus in. You're going to take this first stitch right here. You're going to pull it back, bring the working yarn in front of the peg, and then lay it back down. This has created 2 stitches. You're going to pick that stitch up and you're going to put it on the next peg, the previous peg. Then you're going to knit the stitch. Then you're going to do the same thing on the next stitch. You're going to go back and you're going to find that first notch right there. You see it? Then you're going to bring it back over, don't release, the working yarn in front, take it back, and move it, and then knit. Alright, now, you know there's a break there. You know that's an area that can come apart. Now sometimes you'll do that and you don't need to knit, alright? But in this case, you're just going to pop it. I haven't worn them in enough to be able to do it by hand. So you're going to pop it. Now, what you want to get is, you can get one of the straight pieces or something along those lines, but I've been sticking with all the swivelly ones. I'm going to pop that on there. And then I'm going to pop that in. And I find that popping it in is the difficult part. Okay, so then you're going to pick that up and move it. Pick that top loop up right there and move it over. And then when you pick up that bottom stitch of where that stitch marker is, you're going to pick up that stitch marker and you're going to move it to the next peg. Then you're going to pick up the last stitch that you made over here. Okay. Then you go in and you tighten up your stitches, because you've just loosened them up in order to be able to go in and do that increase. Now at this point you're going to go in and you're just going to knit your way over to the next, and you repeat the same process. Now the benefit of marking out your areas evenly and everything is that you can keep that in mind when it says to do a wedge increase or wedge decrease, and if you're doing all 4, then you know to do this, okay? And that is what I do a lot with the bear pattern that you see, okay? You can follow the video and you'll still get what you're supposed to be doing, okay? So, let me see if I can get to focus. Okay, there you go. Pick that up. Pull it over. Put it in front. Put it back. And you're going to take and move that over. Then you're going to knit the stitch. Then you're going to do the same thing. first notch, pulling it over, putting the working yarn in front, putting it back. Then pick up the new stitch you just made. You'll know it's new because it moves in size. And then knit, stitch. Excuse me. Knit the stitch. Now, there's your break notch. Put the Allen wrench in, pop it out. And you'll want to get another swivel piece. Because with this kind of thing, you want the maneuverability. Alright, now, you're going to pick that stitch up, move it over. Pick the top stitch up here. Move it over. When you pick this stitch up with the stitch marker, you need to pick that up and move it over to where you are placing that stitch. Then you're going to pick up the next stitch and move it over. Then you're going to tighten up your stitches. There. So that you have a nice even increase. Okay. Okay. Then you're just going to go to the next one. And that is how you're going to do a wedge increase in comparison from using the X loom to using the Flex loom. Okay. So if you're watching the video and you see me do a wedge increase, and while there may be two pegs, you're going to follow this video on doing this version of a wedge increase on the Flex loom. Okay, so then I'm going to show you, I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you how to do a decrease on the Flex loom. Okay, so I've done my increase, and something that I kind of want you to keep in mind is once you set the loom up to initially start, keep in mind you're not going to be able to just push it in and get that perfect X every time, okay? Because you are doing this a little differently. These don't move fluidly, as in independently. Each peg is independent, so you're not going to be able to get it in that X shape every single time. Alright, so keep that in mind when you get started. Make sure you keep up with your stitch marker and that you move them every single time you move that stitch, because that's where you're going to be. And if you're doing another project, you just need to have those on your increase and decreasing stitches so that you don't lose track. Alright, and what you may want to do is put some sort of mark or paint mark on your starter pegs so that you know where you're at there too. Alright, so now we're going to go in and we're going to do our wedge decreasing method. Alright, and here's what the bottom looks like. You can see it's opened up. I did several increases, and normally you'll do anywhere from one row in between your increases to 2 to 3 rows depending on the project. Okay, so when you get over here, what you want to do is you want to take and you want to pick up the stitch before that stitch marker. Pick up that stitch before the stitch marker, place it on the loom. The stitch after that stitch marker, place it on that peg. Then you're going to sit there and you're going to wrap your working yarn in there and you're going to knit the 3 together. This is probably the easiest way to decrease. Now, I'm going to move it here because there's the extra peg and I can unsnap that one. Alright, so what I'm going to do is pick that up along with my stitch marker and move it over. Then what I'm going to do is unsnap my piece Throw in the container I have these things in, pop it back, snug it up. Then you're ready to move right along to the next spot. This is where it says a wedge decrease. This is what you're going to do as a version of a wedge decrease. Alright? It should not change the pattern hardly at all. I didn't notice it changing the bear pattern at all. Because I increased the same amount of pegs, I decreased the same amount, and I still ended up with what looks like the same pattern. Alright, here we are on our next stitch marker. So you're going to pick up the stitch before it and place it on that stitch marker peg. You're going to pick up the stitch after it and place it on that stitch marker peg. Then you're going to put the working yarn in front of it, and you're going to knit the 3 together. Find which side is going to cater to being able to take that off. So you're going to go this way. It changes depending on the section, but what you're trying to do is find the section you can take out and one that has 1 stitch on it. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop it out. Pop it out. The stitches do not seem to come off. I'll give it that. Alright. And you're going to snug it up. Alright, you're going to work your way over. Now when it says a wedge decrease in my X-Loom patterns, this is what I'm talking about doing on your Flexee Loom. Okay? You're going to do this kind of a wedge decrease, and you're going to do it for all 4 sections. Alright? And what this will do is it'll give you the same results as I get with my X-Loom patterns. So now you can do my X-Loom patterns on the Flexee Loom, and this is the trick on how to keep up with it. Okay. And you can now easily do that. Alright, so you're going to knit all 3 together. Pick the stitch up, move it over to where you can clear out that piece. Okay. You're going to just pop that in, and then you're going to snug up that stitch. That's how easy it is. Alright, then you're just going to work your way over and do the last one. Okay, so on any of them, whether you're working flat or not, the benefit is you aren't having tight spots, you aren't having the tight pegs, but the thing is you are shuffling stitches around a lot more than what you would on an X-Loom. But the difference is the Flexee Loom is affordable for those on a pretty hefty budget, okay? And if you really like my patterns and your skill level is more advanced, you will enjoy the ability to be able to go in and make my patterns from the X-Loom on your Flexee Loom, okay? And so basically you've just been opened up a whole series of patterns that you might not have realized with this loom by going in and doing my X-Loom, okay? So because this is supposed to be based off of a 3/8 inch gauge, I'll tell you, I personally have found it running a little bigger. And I think it's because the peg sizes are dramatically different. The pegs are fatter than what's on my X-Loom, okay? So, as you can see, it gets weird after a point and doesn't always quite add up and that kind of thing. There you go. So now we're back right where we started with that X pattern. Okay, so that kind of gives you an idea how to do a wedge increase, a wedge decrease. When I say that in my patterns, if you bought any of my X-Loom patterns, That's what I mean when I say wedge increase and wedge decrease. This, you're going to do this method of wedge increasing and wedge decreasing with the Flexee Loom. You will get the same product. So I made this using my teddy bear pattern for the X Loom. As you can see, it came out. Okay. And while you may think it looks different, it's the same pattern, different yarn. I would not suggest using this kind of yarn for this kind of project. It was difficult to see where I was at and that kind of thing. So the X Loom Bear, which is this, was done on the Flexee Loom. And it was using the techniques I just showed you. So if you want to make my teddy bear, my snowman, my elephant, if you want to make my dresses, my doll dresses, you can use this set to make the doll dresses because I used the small X Loom and with all the wedges involved. So if all the wedges are involved, you have enough for a single package of Flexi Looms to do my basic hats, my doll dresses, and my stuffed animals. Okay. If you have the larger gauge, which I think is the 5/8 inch gauge, you can use my 5/8 inch gauge X Loom patterns. Really easy then, because it's the exact same. In fact, it would look exactly the same. But what you got to keep in mind, instead of it being a double stitch look, this wasn't done on an X Loom, but it had wedge increases. You see that double stitching there. You see that double stitching? That's what decreasing and increasing looks like. But if you're doing a single stitch, it's just going to have a single stitch rather than a double stitch there. Okay, so keep that in mind. The only pattern that may show complications, and you should try to do it just like that, is my arched rib hat that's on the X Loom. Because it's basing it off of the already rib stitching that's going on. So that's the only one it may be difficult with. Otherwise, that is how you can easily translate my X Loom patterns that are already available to the Flexi Loom. And I hope that this was a helpful tutorial on how to take my X Loom patterns and put them on a Flexi Loom. Okay?